aerated static beds I mentioned during my talk earlier, but the intention is to create a lot of bulk compost that we use to treat, prepare the fields before we plant the vines, mostly. Is what we're
Smells
using this
good.
for. And since we're putting in 50 acres of vines, that's about 70 miles of vine row, so there's a lot of bulk compost that we want. We want to optimize, the first year we planted the 15 acres, we actually put compost down in the rows and tilled it in. This year we just found out was not practical with 70 acres, 70 miles. So we did more of a spray treatment of the fields, and now we're going to plant into those fields. But we take this compost, so I'm mixing leaves that we get from Carrboro, which solved a huge problem for them. When we first approached them, they had like 8 years of leaves piled up in their staging area from everybody, and they had no plan. They didn't know where to get rid of them. So I think this is an important message for regenerative farming also, is this circular economy. And we're taking things that would be waste, putting, helping people understand that their food waste can be saved and contributing to composting and things on regenerative farms. So making them more aware of how to contribute to the food generation system. But we solved a lot of problems for Carrboro. Asplin, which harvests the wood from the power lines, they had a big problem. They didn't have a place to use a lot of these wood chips. So they gave us that. So we mixed the leaves, the wood chips. We had some silage left over from the dairy as our nitrogen source, and we put it in here. What I like about this system, it's very compact, so it doesn't take as much material movement. It's all right here. And we'll lose about 40% of the bulk mass as this decomposes in the system. So when I want to lay it out in windrows, which we're going to go look at, that's 40% less material that I have to move, and that's a big savings when you have a bunch of stuff to move. So I bought a book from the U.S. Compost Council about how to do aerated static beds, and I bought some pipe at Home Depot. I bought these blowers that are for kids' jump houses online on Amazon. I drilled holes according to the Compost Conference book as best I could. This is not perfect. Like, some things we had to compromise on because our the front end loader has to be able to drive in here and not crush the pipe. So I have to only have 2 pipes, and the tractor can drive over these and not crush them. And then this part, you can see there's a plastic thing here, so this slides in after it's done. So we can lay the pipe as this area is getting filled, and then we put these down here, but there's just some constraints about the equipment we have. But I'm kind of just buying stuff at Home Depot. Then these silly little blowers have square exits, and this pipe has a round entrance. And so I was like, what am I going to do? So I went to Home Depot, and I walked around Home Depot until I could find some stuff. It's not, you may not be able to see it here, but a square vent connector that went on that thing, taped it, duct tape, savior of all things, and then this vent thing, and then it goes in here, and I found this pipe. So we're kind of experimenting, winging it, trying stuff. It doesn't work, we try something else. But this system works well. When it's done, we'll pull this off, empty it, and pull the pipe out as we're going, and we reuse it. So what we do with the air, these blowers run for about 4 or 5 minutes every half an hour. There's a timer. You'll see all these cords go into a central box right here, actually. And there's just timers in there, and they're all plugged into a timer, and this thing will run each blower.
Yeah.
I found that if I try to run 2 blowers at a time, it'll blow the circuit. So I have to set the timers so they're not at the same time. So that one's kicked on. You can hear it blowing.
Yeah.
It'll blow 4 or 5
You got
minutes.
manure in there?
We hardly use any manure.
So that smell is just coming from the chips?
The smell actually comes from the silage.
Okay. Yeah.
And
That's why
it's
manure smells like silage.
And really, most of that smell's not coming from this compost. The silage is right over this little hill, there's a cutout,
Okay.
and there's more silage. That's more where that smell's coming from. My compost smells very nice.
Okay. Yeah, I thought.
Very
But there
protective
is
of
that
her.
smell.
How
I'm
dare
so
you.
used to it.
Yeah.
Very protective of
Smell
my
it.
son.
And the timing of this, we come and take temperatures of this. It's supposed to be between 131 and 151 Fahrenheit. And if you take a thermometer and stick it in there, that stuff is hot.
Yeah.
And it gets even way over 151. And if it gets too hot, we turn the blowers on longer to cool. We're trying to keep the air in the pile to keep it aerobic, because aerobic microbes will break this down. Anaerobic microbes will also break it down, but they create a lot of acids and smells and things that kill plants and a lot of unattractive things. So the point of the blower is to keep it aerobic. We are not using continuous monitoring, although I would love to. And there's companies that produce very nice temperature monitors that you could stick in there. Right now, I climb up this hill and stick it in, and it's a little tedious and time-consuming. We just haven't been willing to pay for that.
Yeah.
And that's you're getting your price point on the farm. I'm not producing compost for sale, and I'm going to have a lot of time to put it out on the field to further mature. So I'm not keeping my finger on the pulse of this exactly. I'm pretty lenient, but I'd like to improve the robustness of our operation, but we just haven't gotten there yet.
How long are these here, and then do they go, like, they go out to the
To
windrows
the
after
field,
this?
yeah,
Okay.
we're going to see the windrows in
Yeah.
case you don't quite visualize what that is. I like to keep this here 2 to 3 months,
Okay.
and this
What are your
it's
goals with
filled
that?
up all of the. I don't know if you could tell. We fill this up a lot higher. These have already lost a lot of volume. We'll fill this up as high as we can, and then it'll come down.
Yes. What are your goals with that? Like,
So
Doing that before just instead of just putting them in the straight in the windrows.
Well, there's 2 goals. One is all of my materials are in these cutout bins right here, and this is really close.
Yeah.
So I don't have to move that material far to come into these bins. So then I'll lose, while they're curing here, I'll lose 40% of their volume. So I have 40% less to tote out to that field. So that's really a big benefit.
yeah.
Also, this is not farmland. We actually are going to have to relocate all of this. That's a distillery at Greg's building. And so next year when you come by, that'll be in operation. You can buy a nice drink and look out on the vineyard. You'll probably park your car here. So we're ultimately going to have to move this. That's an aside. But I drive heavy equipment to make all this load, and I'm not damaging any fields. That's the thing. There's pros and cons to every option. The cons to the windrows are that it's got to take up field space, and I'm driving heavy equipment and compressing all that field, and I don't like to do that. So I can do a lot of the operations here first and not damage my fields, and
Okay.
it's faster and cheaper to make this. It's got a nice footprint.
Are you keeping them moist? Are they staying moist? Like, how do you get is it
Yeah.
just the initial moisture and then you let that roll, or are you coming back and re-wetting them?
We like to re-wet them,
Yeah.
and when I can take that extract from the vermicompost,
Ooh.
I'll show you the cone tank that we use. We pull up the tank here, and we'll just spray onto this pile like 500 gallons of extract. And
we put 250 gallons on each one last week.
yeah,
LBA,
so
just to
Okay.
keep it moisted down.
with this air blowing through, it gets dry really fast.
Yeah.
So ideally, it doesn't have to be an extract. It could just be water too.
Yeah.
But I'm not keeping my finger on the pulse. If I had my way, I would perfect this and do everything like this
Yeah.
and not do windrows, because I just think windrows are not very efficient, and it's taking up my field space. But it all depends on your context and what you're doing. But I couldn't do this 100% unless I kicked it up a notch. Like I was monitoring my temperature more closely, the moisture, and I had, a little more sophisticated system, which they make and which is totally available.
Oh, yeah,
Just you got to pay for it,
Oh, yeah.
and we're just not quite there yet. One second. Let me-
When do you mix in the bioreactor?
Ideally, we'll mix that more as we're putting it out onto the field,
Okay, so that's when you, okay.
because that's just a tiny amount that we have. That we are going to put a tiny amount of
Oh,
that
okay.
into this. So it's kind of like,
Oh, once it's applied, when it's on the ground.
yeah,
Okay,
we're
okay.
trying.
After this is a finished product,
Yeah, we'll put that out. In
then
the field. We're
you'll
getting ready to
mix it.
plant.
Yeah.
You guys already saw the tour. We're putting stuff down, so we
Yeah.
pre-treated that field with a lot of this bulk material. And then we'll use the vermicompost for the liquid sprays. And so this is preparing for the fields next year, really.
Okay. Are you like grinding trees
Well,
up?
Hold on one second.
Go ahead.
I think you had a question.
I was going to ask,
Yeah.
going this way, start to finish, getting out of the windrows, etc., what would your time frame be?
This is a lot faster. That's one of the biggest
Mhm.
advantages. You could probably process this in 5 months
Okay.
through this system.
Okay.
And there's a company called O2, I think.
Yes.
Will consult on smaller operations. They seem like they have a really nice product. So if you're a smaller operation and you want, everything takes your time to learn about and how to do. So if you can go to them and they give you the system and they'll tell you how to do it, and that works for you in a price point, then I'd go with that. There's a lot of great options. This depends on what you're after and what your budgets are and everything.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is that part of the process? Like, are you grinding trees up for this, or are you just clearing space?
They're clearing space over there. That's going to be part of the entertainment area for the vineyard and potentially some more grapes up there. Oh, that's not really great for grapes because that
Yeah.
Up there, what
hillside.
they're doing up there, they're cutting a road for the distillery. That's the entrance.
Okay.
To the distillery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're grinding trees now too.
What we
We're
like
not
to
taking
do.
it anywhere. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
It's all going to get reused somewhere here on the farm.
Yeah.
I've done some experiments. I do tons of experiment. I like to use something like that for a hugel culture.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
But
Because
it
you
just
leave
takes
it.
more work. I actually built one. Maybe we will stop by and
Yeah.
look at it. The challenge I had with that is I built a beautiful, fabulous bed, and it's just the weeds were like, "This is awesome," and they grew huge. And now I don't have. It's just a lot of work to get
Yeah.
it to grow into plants.
Yeah.
But we would love to use all that.
Because it's
and
coarser,
recycle it.
it's like bigger chunks and stuff from the machine. It's not the
Yes,
finished
that
product
won't
isn't like
ground
this.
up. This, yeah. So what's nice, Asplund,
Yeah.
they have a giant grinder
Oh, yeah.
that
Yeah.
costs millions of dollars,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
they give us the chips.
Right.
And so that is how we like to get it.
Yeah, yeah.
That stuff, grinders are just too expensive and they're too hard to operate. And we're farmers, so we don't want to do the grinding. So we have to find other uses for that.
Yeah.
Biochar.
Biochar,
Oh, yeah.
hugelculture.
Potentially
Yeah.
biochar. I mean, you have to make the biochar in a biochar.
No,
You have
no,
to
You
chop
make-
it anyways.
No,
Yeah,
no,
you
you
have to
no,
break it
no,
down.
no, you
That's
don't.
right.
So those are good options, and those could be things we could explore. Because I would like to put that into full value. And we bought some biochar to treat the field over there, and it's
Mhm.
very expensive,
Oh, yeah.
rightly so.
Oh, yeah.
But if we could create it here, we've actually looked into that, but we haven't come up with something that's satisfactory for what we're doing.
Like the scale, the size
Yeah,
of the pit
the
that you.
cost for the equipment and stuff. But
Equipment?
if you guys know about that, I mean,
I thought you
there
just
could be-
build a-
Those mobile kilns.
Yeah, there might be some good options
They
we
don't,
don't know
yeah,
about.
you,
So
they,
we'd
you
be,
can take it anywhere and assemble and you can
Yeah.
make a biochar.
Yeah, I mean, can't you just
I
make a
mean,
pit,
there's
like a
certain
conical
quality,
hole or
It's
whatever?
supposed to be burned in that.
It's trying to pull
Anyway,
it out
let's not get
afterwards.
too
It's a
far
pain
into
in
the
the ass.
weeds on
Right.
that.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good
Okay.
idea. I'd love to